I've spent most of my life playing video games. Like many of you, gaming was my escape. A place where nothing was real, and nothing could hurt me, or at least, that's what I thought. Because tonight, I'm sharing 3 true gaming horror stories that started inside a game, but didn't stay there. Story 1. I was 16 when this happened. It was the middle of summer break. No school, no responsibilities. It was just me, my PC, and this old multiplayer survival game that barely had any players left. The servers were mostly dead. Sometimes I'd log in and see maybe 2 or 3 players online if I was lucky. One night, around 2:30 a.m., I joined a server that said, "Online players." 1. Perfect. The map was quiet. Too quiet. I spent about 20 minutes looting abandoned buildings when a message appeared in the chat. Hey, I froze. I checked the player list again. Still said 1 player online. I typed back, "Hello." A few seconds passed. Then another message, "You shouldn't be here this late." At first, I assumed it was a glitch. Maybe the server count was just wrong. So I replied, "Who is this?" The response came instantly, "You already know." My heart started beating faster, but I tried to laugh it off. People troll online all the time. It's part of the experience. So I kept playing, trying to ignore it. 5 minutes later, my character entered an empty town. As I turned a corner, I saw another player standing completely still in the middle of the street. There was no username above their head. Just standing there, facing me. I typed in the chat, "Is that you?" The character didn't move. Instead, a new message appeared. "Turn around." I didn't. I logged out immediately. But before the game closed, one final message appeared. "Good night, Min." That was my real name, not my username, not my email. My real, first name. I never used voice chat in that game. I never shared personal info on any forums related to it. I never told anyone who I was. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept replaying it in my head. How could they know? The next morning, I checked my PC logs, ran scans, everything. Nothing unusual, but when I opened the game again, my save file was renamed. It was no longer called survival_world_01. It was called I See You. I uninstalled the game right then and there. And I've never played on an empty server again. Story 2. This next story is something else. It comes from a college student who was a huge fan of single-player RPGs. No multiplayer, no online features. Just him and the immersive world of the game. He loved the escapism, the feeling of being the hero in a world he could control. But, as he would soon find out, sometimes you're not as in control as you think. One night, he was up late, grinding levels in a familiar forest area. He had cleared this place dozens of times before. He knew every enemy patrol route, every hidden chest, every line of dialogue from the local NPCs. It was repetitive, almost meditative. Same enemies, same loot, same predictable characters, or so he thought. This time, something was different. As he passed by an old, familiar campsite, he saw a figure sitting by the fire. He stopped. That character wasn't supposed to be there. He'd been through this area countless times, and that spot was always empty. He moved his character closer, his eyes scanning the screen for any indication of what this was. There was no quest marker above the figure's head. No dialogue icon. Nothing to suggest it was part of the game's design. It was just a silent figure, hunched over, staring into the digital flames. His curiosity got the better of him. Was it a rare, hidden encounter, a secret developer Easter egg? He guided his character right up to the NPC. As he got closer, the figure slowly, unnaturally, turned its head. The student's breath caught in his throat. Where a face should have been, there was nothing. Just a black, empty, glitched-out texture. It was a void, a hole in the game's world. And then, a dialogue box popped up, but it wasn't the usual fantasy fare. The box was empty for a moment, and then a single line of text appeared. It read, Why do you keep coming back? A shiver went down his spine. The question was so direct, so out of place, it felt personal. He instinctively made his character back away from the faceless NPC. As he did, the game froze. The music stopped, the ambient sounds of the forest went silent. He was about to reboot his console, thinking it was just a crash, when the dialogue on the screen changed. You play to forget, the text now read. Then, it changed again, but you always remember. His heart was pounding in his chest. What was happening? This wasn't a game anymore. The words on the screen felt like an accusation, like something was looking right through the screen and into his real life, into his reasons for playing so much. Before he could even process it, the screen went completely black. For a terrifying second, all he could see was his own wide-eyed reflection staring back at him from the dark monitor. A moment later, the game resumed. The image flickered back to life. He was back in the forest. The fire at the campsite was still burning, but the NPC, it was gone, as if it had never been there at all. He saved the game and immediately shut everything down, his hands trembling slightly. The next day, still deeply unsettled, he scoured the internet. He went through every forum, every wiki, every fan community dedicated to the game. He searched for faceless NPC, glitched character, weird campsite dialogue. Nothing. No one else had ever seen it. No mods were installed on his console. There had been no recent updates. No one had reported a similar glitch. It was just him. He tried to rationalize it, a one-in-a-million bug, a bizarre corruption of the game files. He tried to forget about it and moved on, but the experience lingered in the back of his mind. Weeks passed, and he eventually started playing a different game, a completely different genre, made by a different developer. He was trying to put the incident behind him. One evening, he was playing this new game, and a loading screen appeared. He was barely paying attention, just waiting for the next level to load, when he saw it. A small message appeared at the bottom of the screen, just like the tips and lore entries that usually show up, but this message was different. It was in the exact same font, the exact same text box style as the one from the faceless NPC, and the message read, "Still running." His blood ran cold. Different game. Different developer, but the same haunting presence. He immediately powered off his console and didn't touch another video game for 6 months. To this day, he is absolutely convinced that the NPC wasn't a piece of code. It wasn't a glitch. He believes it was something else entirely. Something that noticed him, deep inside the machine, simply because he kept coming back. Something that could follow him from one world to the next. He wasn't just playing the game. Something in the game was watching him play. Story 3. This last story is, by far, the most unsettling one I've ever come across. It comes from a competitive FPS player who, at the time, was living alone in a small apartment. He was a dedicated gamer, spending most of his nights online, grinding through ranked matches with his usual squad of friends. They had their routines, their inside jokes, their callouts honed over hundreds of hours of playing together. It was his main social outlet, a digital space where he felt completely at home. One night, however, things were different. For whatever reason, his friends all decided to call it a night much earlier than usual. One by one, their avatars winked out of existence on his friends list, leaving him alone in the game's main lobby. The silence felt a bit strange, but the competitive itch was still there. He wasn't ready to log off just yet, so he decided to do something he rarely did: queue for ranked matches solo. He made sure his own microphone was muted. He didn't feel like talking to strangers, and in his experience, solo queue voice chat was often more toxic than helpful. He just wanted to focus, click heads, and climb the ladder. He found a match. The loading screen flashed, and he was in. The first few rounds went by as expected. A chaotic mix of anonymous players. Some good, some not so good, all silent. He was in the zone, his attention locked on the screen, listening for the subtle in-game audio cues: footsteps, reloads, the distant pop of a sniper rifle. Then, During a quiet moment in the middle of the match, as he was holding a defensive angle, waiting for the enemy team to push, he heard it. A sound that didn't belong. It was a soft, slow, rhythmic breathing, coming directly through his headset. It was unnervingly close, as if someone was standing right beside him, breathing into his ear. His first thought was a logical one. Someone on his team must have accidentally left their microphone on. It happens all the time. You hear someone's ceiling fan, their dog barking, or, in this case, their breathing, annoying, but harmless. He pulled up the scoreboard to identify the culprit and mute them. As he scanned the list of player names, he felt a cold knot form in his stomach. He checked once, then twice. Next to each name was the universal icon for a muted microphone. No one on his team, or the enemy team for that matter, had their voice chat enabled. Not a single person, yet the breathing continued, steady and unwavering in his ears. It was a low, raspy sound, like air being drawn through a dry throat. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a bug, a weird audio glitch. He tried to ignore it, to focus back on the game, but the sound was impossible to tune out. Then, the breathing stopped. For a blissful second, there was only the ambient noise of the game. He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding, and in that silence, a voice whispered. It was low, guttural, and seemed to crawl directly into his brain. It said just 2 words, "Don't move." He froze, not just in the game, but in his chair. Every muscle in his body tensed, adrenaline flooded his system. In a single, panic motion, he ripped the headset off his head and threw it onto his desk. The sudden, absolute silence of his apartment was deafening. His heart was hammering against his ribs. He scanned his room, his eyes darting into every dark corner. Nothing. He was alone. The only sound was his own frantic heartbeat. He sat there for what felt like an eternity, just listening. After a few minutes, the initial wave of terror began to subside, replaced by a shaky, confused curiosity. He told himself he was overreacting. It had to be a glitch. Or be a new kind of hack designed to mess with people. Slowly, cautiously, he reached for the headset. He put it back on. Silence. Nothing but the game's audio. He took a deep, shuddering breath and forced his hands back onto his keyboard and mouse. He managed to finish the match, his performance understandably terrible. He should have stopped. He should have turned off the computer and gone to bed. But the gamer in him, the part that craved one more win, took over. He told himself it was a one-time fluke. He queued again. The next game started normally. For about 10 minutes, everything was fine. He was starting to relax, convincing himself he'd imagined the whole thing. And then, as he was rotating across the map, the whisper returned. This time, it was even clearer, more intimate. "I can hear your heart." That was it. He slammed his fist on the desk, the impact rattling his monitor. "Who is this?" he yelled into his muted microphone, not caring that no one in the game could hear him. "What do you want?" The only response was the chilling silence in his headset. He was shouting at nothing. Frustration and fear warred within him. He was about to quit the match, to just shut everything down, when something happened that made his blood run cold. His monitor flickered. For less than a single, terrifying second, the screen went black. And in that instant of darkness, a tiny, bright green light blinked on at the top of his monitor's bezel. The webcam light. He stared at the spot, his mind struggling to process what he had just seen. He didn't own a webcam. He had never purchased one, never plugged one into his PC. His monitor didn't even have one built in. There was no light there. There couldn't be. That was the final, undeniable proof that something was deeply, horribly wrong. This wasn't a glitch or a hack. This was something else entirely. Without a second thought, he lunged for the back of his computer tower, yanking the power cord directly from the wall. The machine died instantly, the fan spinning down into silence. He didn't stop there. He unplugged the monitor, the router, everything. He just wanted the connection to be severed. He grabbed his keys and his phone and practically ran out of his apartment, not even bothering to lock the door. He spent the night at a friend's place, unable to sleep, replaying the events over and over in his mind. The next morning, armed with daylight and the company of his friend, he cautiously returned to his apartment. They went through the entire place, room by room. Nothing was out of place, nothing was missing. The windows were locked, the door had been undisturbed. There were absolutely no signs of a break-in. It was as if nothing had happened. Feeling slightly foolish but still deeply unnerved, he decided to boot up his computer, his friend standing over his shoulder. He needed to see if there was any evidence, any log files, anything that could explain the voice. As he was looking through his system files, he found something that made his stomach drop. In his audio recordings folder, there was a newly created file. It was saved at 3:17 a.m., right around the time of the second incident. He never used audio recording software. He had no memory of creating this file. His hand trembled as he double-clicked it. His friend leaned in closer. The file was only a few seconds long. It contained a single audio clip. It was the same low, guttural voice from his headset. And it said, "You should have stayed quiet." He sold his entire PC setup a week later. He said he couldn't even look at it without hearing that voice in his head. He quit competitive gaming entirely. Gaming connects us to millions of people all over the world. Most of the time, it's harmless fun, a way to unwind, to escape, to connect with friends. But these stories are a chilling reminder that when you open that digital door, you don't always know what or who might be on the other side. When you're online, you're never truly alone. If you enjoyed these stories and want to hear more, consider subscribing to the channel. We've got a lot more true horror lined up for you. Thanks for listening. And tonight, maybe think about logging off just a little bit earlier than usual. Stay safe out there.